It's Tuesday, January 16, 2024. So again, not a whole lot happening here. The weather's been very cold. We're looking at temperatures between minus 20 and minus 30 C for temperatures, wind chills of well below minus 40. And therefore, I've been spending all my time in the house or in the shop. And there's not much I can do in the shop, so mostly in the house. I've been trying to keep busy on the computer, and most of it's just wasting time. However, I have been building some frames still, and I'm getting down to the end of my foundation. I'll show you the frames here in a minute. But over here, I've got my dust collector system. Somebody asked me about my dust collection recently, and so I'll show you that. This is a King Canada brand. King Canada is kind of the best of the worst. You know, it's mostly affordable stuff, and I don't necessarily recommend it. Here's the label on this, but it's not too bad if that's what you can afford. And I got this used when I started doing woodworking as a hobby. It only cost me, I think, about $200 at that time. These days, brand new, this is about, I think, about an $800 machine. And it's a I believe it's a 1,200 cubic feet per minute dust collector. And just a word on dust collectors. People try to use shop vacs for dust collection. Well, you can see the size of the piping used here. This is 4-inch piping. Shop vacs use the principle of I think they call it static pressure. You get a lot of air moving and suction to suck things up off the floor. Dust collectors use more of a principle of moving a lot of air. They don't have a lot of suction. For example, a good dust shop vac will vacuum up a small nail or screw off the floor pretty easily. Dust collector won't do that. And dust collector is not really meant for cleaning the floor. However, I still do, but usually just when there's a bunch of sawdust ends up on the floor, because it doesn't pick up bigger, heavier pieces at all. Now, this is essentially a 4-inch pipe system, and I'll just show you the components. First, I'll show you, we'll go right back to the power. There's a device on the wall over here. You can hardly see it, but that's a device here plugged into the outlet. The dust collector is plugged into that. What that is it allows me to use this remote control to start the dust collector and stop it from by the table saw. One nice thing about a dust collector is they're not as loud as a shop vac. They have a more, I don't know how to characterize the sound, but it doesn't hurt your ears like a shop vac might. I'll turn it on here a second. So I just push the button on the little remote. Normally I have this remote sitting on the table saw, the rip fence, and just press it here. So you may have seen that bag inflate. Okay. So the dust comes in here. There's a little bit of a spiral baffle in here, and the dust ends up in the bag at the bottom. Unlike a vacuum cleaner, everything the dust collector picks up goes through the impeller. The impeller is down in here, the motor is just behind, you can't see it. And then the pipe that brings everything in is right here. There's a Y pipe there you could hook up to if that's what you had. So everything goes through that impeller. And this bag is a little challenging to empty with the strap and everything. So the air mostly comes out of this filter. Actually, the air all comes out of this filter, barring any leaks in the system. And honestly, I spent a lot of money on that last year, and I kind of regret doing it because I think the performance of my machine has suffered. And if the sun is shining right in here, you can see the dust coming out through this filter. I had to put a strap here to hold that filter down. I've installed it as according to instructions. It's got some little thumb screws. You can see one here. And one day I hit the button, I looked over, and I saw the filter come up about, I don't know, half an inch, quarter of an inch, half an inch. So all the air was just blowing out under the filter. So it's kind of a crazy design. But that's King Canada, right? They're really not designed very well. I really would love a better dust collector than this. There's a handle here, and this is also kind of a crappy design. They didn't even have the correct hardware in the box, and also the hardware and the way it has to go together was nothing like the instructions included in the box. So it just kind of shows you what you're buying here. So anyway, you move this around inside. I don't know if you can see the pleats moving there, but they're just a couple of large plastic, flexible plastic paddles that just flick the dust off of that big pleated filter from the inside. And I may be not doing that often enough to get the air to flow through this, but whatever. I might put the bag back on. And so when I say the bag is literally that, it's this bag that's got another band clamp here. There's one for the bottom and there's one for the top. This one I guess is the bottom, because the top one has a loop where, and I took it off to put the filter on, but there's a support hanger that just holds that up. Oh, and I just dumped all the dust out of it. So I might go back to the bag. I don't know if I can sell that filter. I'm pretty disgusted with that. It's a very, very poor design, and I don't even feel like it works properly. So thing is, with this filter, you can buy this machine new with the bag setup or with the filter setup. With the filter, it's close to $1,000 unit, as I recall. I'd like to move up to a better dust collector. You know, my lungs need that. You can tell I huff and puff a lot. Bit of asthma coming on. But I need to spend $2,000 to $3,000 minimum to get something appropriate here. So that's just my lament about that. Okay, so we're working backwards here. So the dust collector draws air out of this garbage can thing. I'll try to show you what's in here. It's really just an elbow under the lid. And then the air is drawn up through this hole. The dust and debris comes out this elbow. And the whole idea is that it just redirects it enough that any of the heavier stuff ends up in this garbage can, which is just, prevents it from going through the impeller, and B, is a whole lot easier to change than that bag. And it actually works pretty good. So most of my debris ends up in there. You can buy cyclone systems to do what this does. I actually have one, but I've never installed it. It's rather large, so it has to take some doing to install. So here's what we have on the inlet. And again, this pipe is the outlet that goes to the dust collector. So that's the suction. So the air is coming out of the garbage can through here. And this lid doesn't really, there's nothing holds it down except when you turn the system on, it gets sucked down tight. I put this Y pipe in here so that I could run my, this is kind of a vacuum cleaner thing on a very flexible hose. So I can use that for cleaning up the table saw. There's a long pipe that I can put on here to vacuum the floor and whatnot. I don't use it often, but when I need it, it's very, very handy. Sorry there's so much junk. I can't lift any of this to clean up. This is what you call a blast gate. And this one is closed. This goes to that vacuum thing. So you just open it. It's just a very low-tech little door that slides in the airflow. So this one goes to the table saw. And so you can close that, open that, use the vacuum, close that, open that, use the table saw, which is how it sits most of the time. Now you can't really see it here, but this pipe from the table saw blast gate just goes in under here, and I've got it secured to my outfeed table and runs down on a slope down to the back of the table saw there. This is not the best kind of piping to use for this. This is just home heating duct. Works well, but I think it restricts the flow a bit. But it is what it is. Until I get something really amazing set up here, it's going to be the way it is. In the world of dust collectors, in the hobby, the high-end hobby, low-end industrial dust collectors, it seems to me that Oneida is one of the big names for that. I think I would probably try to buy an Oneida system if I could afford it. They have a system called a supercell, and that works on a little different principle. It uses multiple high-speed fans to create the airflow rather than one giant, impeller system. Still seems to have quite a whine to it, but that seems to be one of the better systems that people are going with these days. Laguna makes some pretty nice systems, although I've heard some discouraging things about those too, so it's really hard to tell what to get. They're a lot of money, and I don't want to make a bad choice. To help with the dust situation in the air, I installed this last year. It's a Raycon air filter. It's really just a fan and a bunch of filters. Now you can see that this filter has some dust in it, but if you take this filter out, what you'd see in there is, I think there's 4 long, deep HEPA filter bags in there. So a lot more cubic inch area of filtration. This one on the outside is just a paper filter kind of thing. It just keeps the majority of the larger particles out of the HEPA filter. And yeah, so it just blows air out, sucks air in there and blows it out. It just makes a kind of a circulation in the room. It does help, as you can see. I mean, obviously it's full of dust, so it's collecting dust. But I need to improve this dust collector too. This thing kind of sucks right now. Well, it sucks in ways that it shouldn't. And it doesn't suck as good in the ways it should. So that's bad in 2 ways, right? As mentioned, I've been building frames. And again, I wrap them up in 10s quite often, just to make them, just when I'm doing this, because they get to be such a pain if they're just loose. I'm just doing this to keep busy. And I've just, I think I've got about 25, 30 sheets of foundation left. So probably use that up and then call it a day. Well, I won't get those done today. I have to leave something for tomorrow. I was telling a friend about this the other day, and he said, "Oh, I didn't realize you ran mediums." Yeah, typically I run deeps. You know, I always say, well, I run exclusively deeps. And, you know, you can go into the differences and the advantages. The reasons I run deeps is cost. Deep frames, deep boxes cost almost exactly the same as mediums. And mediums, well, if you can say it either way, a medium is 30% smaller than a deep, but a deep is 50% larger than a medium. Okay, you think about that. And so if I were to replace the, 300 honey supers that I have with mediums, not only would the replacement cost, just the conversion cost, be there, but it would also increase the overall cost. So it would be many, many, many thousands of dollars for me to change over. And to change over and increase the overall cost because I have less production per box per frame at the same equipment cost, okay? And one of the huge advantages to running all deeps, and I will say huge advantages to running all the same size frames, is I have all the freedom in the world to take any of my drawn frames, whether they're brood frames or honey frames, and use them wherever I want. I can use them in a honey super, I can use them in a brood chamber as my needs dictate. And usually it is put the foundation in the honey super, run it through the honey flow, and then I have drawn comb for next year, because if I'm selling nukes, if I sell 500, if I sell 100 nukes, that's 500 frames. So I need to draw 500 frames again to carry on with my brood frames. So that's handy to have those deep frames in my honey supers, because then they can draw that on a flow, and then I have replaced those frames for next year. But I do run some mediums. And one of the reasons I run mediums is comb honey. I find that a medium is a really nice size for comb honey because, and I went in detail with this last summer on one of my videos. I'm a lazy comb honey producer, and maybe lazy, but because I work the way I do, and because I work by myself, I have to pick and choose what I'm going to get really fussy with. And comb honey is not that thing. So I need my comb honey production to be super simple, take very little effort and very little time. For example, you could run things like Ross rounds. I tried Ross rounds once. It didn't work for me. And I'm not saying they don't work. They didn't work for me that time because I didn't do it right. And what I have to do is I have to learn how to do Ross rounds, and then I have to implement what I learned to do Ross rounds, and then do Ross rounds correctly to make them work. And that would kind of be the same for any, hog half comb. I shouldn't think I should use hog half comb, right? For, I think, obvious reasons, but I don't. And there's many other products like that I could use. But there's a learning curve and there's fussing around to do. And that's what I can't take time to do. I can't fuss. I need to put my comb honey supers on, send them into honey flow, harvest them, and then go see what they left for me. And that's where these mediums come into play. I'll show you a little bit of something about these mediums that I do special, because there's nothing to do special about these mediums, except for leave the foundation out, except for one thing that's going to help you. Okay, on this medium, I'll show you this. The bees, when they draw the comb, they want some guide to start on. And this center is anything but a guide because it's a void, right? There's a groove here. What the bees will often do is they'll use this edge as their guide. So they'll start their comb there, and then the next top bar is close by, and then they'll hook this one to that one. They'll make a total mess. So people talk about, put starter strips. Well, if you want to waste money, then go ahead and cut up foundation. to put in there. You don't need to bother wasting money with foundation. But what you can put in there is just a little stick of wood. Just get a little piece of wood. I cut on my table saw. I know some people don't have table saws, so maybe you want to use foundation. But what I want to impress upon you is I'm planning to just rip a little piece of wood that fits in there really nice and snug. And I'm going to run that pretty much all the way across here to give the bees a nice straight line to start on. Now, how far down? Well, don't make it far down, because the farther down you make that, the less comb honey you can cut out of that. I made some a few years ago, and it sticks down here a good, probably that far, like that's 3/4 of an inch, so it sticks way down. And then when I cut the comb honey, I have to cut around it. It's only about this long too. It's only about that long, and I have to cut around it, and that's not ideal. So you don't need wax foundation. You don't need starter strips. You don't need anything with a pattern on it. The bees are drawing their own comb. They don't need your help there. And you think about how big a bee is. They're only about that big. If you have something that protrudes down that's as big as a bee, or protrudes down as far as a bee, I'm sure that would be more than enough. You know, that something as far as that pencil in the middle would be enough, because all they want is something there that's going to help them, you know, some kind of an edge. Like I say, even this corner is enough of an edge for them to start going down. And that's all I do. So again, if you want to get really technical with comb honey, that's great. If you want to go to honey shows and you want to do competitions with comb honey, that's not what I'm doing. I'm just trying to produce comb honey. It's one of those products I enjoy producing. Not very many people do. And my flow, my nectar source here, lends itself well to comb honey, because I don't produce any canola honey. I don't have canola in my area where my bees forage. So therefore, my honey stays liquid a long, long time. That's important for comb honey, because you can't warm it to liquefy it. Once it's granulated, it's granulated, and you've got to really warm it up to get it liquefied again. So canola honey is not really so much appropriate for comb honey. Not ideal anyway. My forage is. So that's one reason I kind of go ahead and do it. And I have actually developed a bit of a market for comb honey. And I don't like telling people I don't have any. I don't like running out. So I'm going to try to increase my comb honey production this year. We'll see how that goes. What do I do? What do I do in the honey flow for comb honey? Again, I don't want to fuss over it. So I generally just put the comb honey supers on and walk away. It's not really that ideal. You can, like, sometimes I'll go back to them and I'll check the comb frames. If they start to make the comb, you know, weird, then I'll try and straighten it out and deal with that. But that's, again, more time to produce that comb honey. So usually I just let them do what they do, and let the chips fall where they may. Harvest the comb honey and package it up. As they say, Bob's your uncle. You do need a strong flow. I need to get my comb supers on early on the flow, so that they get that first big blast of honey and they start building that comb right away. Because if they don't have a good flow, they're not going to build comb, right? They have to get that comb built. It takes a lot of effort. So that's really all I can say to help you with comb honey. I've used a lot of different systems as far as frames go to make comb honey, and I still use a variety. I have deeps with a divider stick in the middle, all kinds of things. I make story frames with the foundation in the center and foundationless on the outside. I'll do that for comb honey sometimes. I don't like that method because I have to harvest the comb honey, then I have to go back and uncap the center and extract it. And I normally harvest my comb honey after I'm done extracting. So there's a disconnect there. I'll have to, then pack all my comb honey, recover all the story frames that I have to extract, and then go back to the extractor and spin those out. So it's not my favorite way, but it's a really good way. If you're a hobbyist and you want to make some comb honey, let me kind of show you what I mean, because a lot of people won't maybe have seen those videos. Why I call it a story frame is kind of a story for another time. So essentially, you've got your frame with your full sheet of foundation. Well, just take your sheet of foundation and cut it down the center before you put it in here, right? Cut it down the center, and then center that half sheet right in the middle here. So you have a half sheet of foundation right there. And as far as the bees starting the comb correctly, it's very reliable, and it's very robust for the extractor too. If you want to extract that whole frame, that's fine. I actually am an advocate of this method to cut your foundation costs in half, particularly with a medium. If you're running mediums, you could actually make comb honey this way too, as I think about it. You could put a half a sheet of medium foundation in the center here. So that cuts your foundation costs in half. They'll build this into honeycomb. And because that's a medium, you're not going to be using it in a deep brood chamber if you're running deep brood chambers, which a lot of people run deep broods and medium honey supers. Use a half sheet of foundation and you'll save a ton of money with on your foundation costs, and it'll work out really nice. And then if they make that really, really nice, then you can cut that out, put it in a container, and that's comb honey, even if it's just for yourself. If you got 1 or 2 hives, do that. That's a really good way to make a bit of comb honey. So yeah, so foundation, foundation costs and whatnot. I suppose a person could cut that sheet in 3 and put the foundation on the outsides and then let them go to town on the inside. I think that would work okay. I've never done that. But it might work even better because they tend to build comb in the center first instead of the outsides. So, you need to experiment with different things and find out what works. I didn't have anybody tell me most of this. I just started doing things and see what works and what doesn't. And I've learned a lot about what doesn't work. There's been a lot of failure. And like they say, failure is not the opposite of success. It's actually part of it, right? Let that sink in. So if you're failing, then good, you're trying. If you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough, right? You're sandbagging. So start failing and learn your craft. Anyway, that's what I'm doing with comb honey. So I've built 25 of these so far. I keep a supply of medium end bars on hand in case I or anybody else wants some minis, mini mating nuke frames, because that takes a medium end bar. And I can just manufacture a bottom and a top. The tops are pretty basic. They don't have any crazy extra milling, so they're pretty easy. So are the bottoms, they're real easy too. Hope that dust collector thing made sense, and that's what you wanted to know. I had somebody ask me to show the dust collector. It's Thursday, January 18th, 2024. And I can hardly feel my toes. I was working outside and it's really cold. And like an idiot, I'm still wearing running shoes. You just think, well, I'll just go out and do this one little thing and I'll be fine. And it's still cold. It's minus 18°C outside. And it's not an especially windy day, so that's really good. And minus 18°C has actually been an improvement over what we've had lately. It's been really cold, and I've spent hardly any time outside lately. Next week I saw, what did I see? Wednesday and Saturday I saw forecast temperatures of 0 C. That's, if you're not familiar with C, that's melting point, freezing, melting. So I'm thankful it's going to warm up. And that's right on time, because more often than not, we will get a thaw the third week in January. And so that's right on time. That's January thaw time. And that's a thing. Like, we didn't get it, I think, last year. We didn't get it the year before. We didn't get it in 22. And I don't know that we got it last year. But it's the exception when we don't get it. We will get January thaw more years than we don't. So while I was outside, I had to clear some snow so that I could load the truck. I had to get at the honey house so that I could get the honey out of the cabinet with the tractor and then put it on the truck and slide it off the pallet into the truck. And you recall that I'm still not allowed to lift anything. So, it's still a bit of a to-do, but thankful for the little tractor. I just lifted that right out of there and set it on the back of the truck, slid the pails off the pallet, and then had to go back to the sea can. And God bless her, my wife, to help me out, and she has to open the sea can. The handles on the sea can are quite low, and it does take some effort to open it. So that's not something that I should be doing. Doctor's orders. So she came out with me. We got some product out of the sea can, loaded it in the truck, and I'm off to the packer tomorrow and doing some deliveries. And it's great to get some orders and some deliveries and get some cash flow, which is always welcome. So, as usual with my trip to Winnipeg Day, I probably won't be doing an update, and we'll just kind of end it here on Thursday, and I'll put this together so you can see it on the weekend. I appreciate you watching, I really do. I have a little bit of a task here that I'll share with you. And last summer, when I bought my new Gallagher fence controller, it's been working really well, but I'm pretty annoyed with the quality of the electrical hookup on it. First of all, to hook the 12-volt battery to it, it's just this connector that sticks into it. It's not very secure, and I think it could easily fall out. Plus there's, I don't know, 3 feet of wire here, and then it terminates in these really junky, garbagey alligator clips. And this one even broke. The alligator part of it has to, it's plastic welded to this in order to open, and the plastic weld gave way, so now it won't even open. The jaws are stuck closed. So that's going to get snipped and thrown in the garbage where it belongs. And I'm pretty disappointed with Gallagher for that, because I paid $750 for that controller. It provides a snap for sure, and it's got some nice features, and it works well. However, I think they certainly could improve their, certainly this part, and some of their packaging on it. Anyway, I am going to put ring terminals on this, so it attaches to my deep cycle battery with the wing nuts on the battery. Okay, so you're looking over my shoulder here. Hopefully you'll be able to see this okay. And it looks like I used my little wire stripper elsewhere, probably the honey house, and I didn't put it back in here. But this is what's going to happen with this. Just like that, and just like that. And then those two go over here in the garbage can, exactly where they belong. Now, I don't have my little stripper, so I have to do this the old-fashioned way. I'll just compromise the insulation a bit and then give it a pull. Yeah, I wish I had my stripper. There's this one, which is kind of a crappy one, but I'll try it. Alright. I want to strip off a little more than that, because this wire is a lot smaller than the connector I'm using. The connector I'm using is made for much bigger wire, and I'm going to fold this over to use up space in the crimp connector. So I'm just going to fold that over like that and twist it together. Just so I have a bigger, sort of a bigger wire there, so the crimp connector can hang on to it a little more securely. Just going to use a flat plier to squeeze that down a bit. I have to wear my old man glasses. See this? So that's what I want to use. I think that's the size for a 12 gauge wire. And I think that is I don't think it's a 14, I think it's a 16 gauge. A little tug to test the connection. And that is it. And I'll use that next summer when I put my electric fence back in service. Okay, not very exciting content today, but at least it's something, right? You gotta kind of be jack of all trades sometimes. I learned that from my dad. He was a farmer, and you know, that man, there seemed to be nothing he couldn't do. There seemed to be nothing he wouldn't take on. And not very often he took on something that he wasn't very good at, but he'd do it anyway, and he'd learn. And there was only a couple times I recall growing up that he actually phoned a neighbor and said, hey, come over, do this for me, because you're better at it than I am. He would phone people and learn how to do something over the phone so that he could do it. But anyway, that's just what you do. So thanks for watching this week. Hopefully I'll have a little bit more for you next week. But then again, I think next week I'm still going to be on restrictions. And so it's probably just going to be frame building, etc. And so that's what it'll be likely. Thanks for watching. Take care and have fun. It's Friday, January the 19th, 2024. So this is a rare trip to Winnipeg update. I don't do many of these. I'm just sitting in the truck here for a minute to warm up. I've been outside unloading at the packer. Got to the packer this morning. Everything went well. Still can't lift anything, so a nice man that works there helped carry all the pails in. Very nice guy. I'm sure blessed to be surrounded by pleasant people, you know, people you like working with. I wish I was that person. I don't think I'm very easy to work with sometimes. However, just stopped at Costco. Gonna go in and get a few essentials. And it is, I think it's about -19 C right now. It was -30 C when I woke up. Ooh. And so that's very cold. I'm thankful I have a good truck here, and it's running well. It's warm, but I brought my warm weather clothes. I've got my big bush pack boots under there and my great big Carhartt jacket, balaclava and gloves and the whole works, so that if I do end up walking anywhere or sitting anywhere for any period of time, because you know, if this truck stops running for any reason, it gets cold really fast in here. It's surprising. So that's kind of the deal in this weather here, is You got to have the clothes in the car. You can't trust the car. I mean, vehicles are a lot more reliable today than they have been, but you still can't do it. Just throw the jacket and the boots in, you know. Of course, I'm still in running shoes, right? My feet are kind of cold, but the key is not to spend too much time outside. I'm going to walk across the parking lot into the store. I don't want to be tramping around in the big boots, you know. That's just kind of really awkward, these great huge boots. They're warm, but they're not exactly track shoes. Anyway, gonna go to Costco here. Oh, I was gonna say this, you know, sometimes I can't, in the summertime, it's hard to buy frozen and refrigerated food here at Costco because I have to do all my deliveries yet today, and then I have to go home, so they could be in the car for another 3 or 4 hours. And if it's warm outside in the summer, that's difficult. I bring coolers. Often I'll bring coolers along to put things in. It's still not ideal. Day like today, this is the day you want to buy your frozen food. You just stick it in the back of the truck, man, and it is not going to thaw at all. And you know, you have to think about the opposite too. If you buy things that can't freeze, you buy some vegetables, you buy some canned goods or whatever that can't freeze, make sure you put that in the cab, and make sure the cab doesn't cool off too much during the day. It usually doesn't, because I'm not out of the cab. The truck is running for the majority of the day. So there's just some little things that, you know, I thought I'd share. We've been talking with a bunch of people from warmer climates, and everybody is in a deep freeze though. Even the quote warmer climates are getting snow and cold temperatures. It's quite surprising. And you know, North America, Canada, US, most of the people I talk to are in Canada, US. So we're not the only ones. You know, it just gets colder as you go north, of course. Next week they say a little bit of a reprieve, bit of a warm up. That'll be very welcome. But usually when that happens, we get a bunch of snow. So nice thing about this weather is usually it clears off, the roads dry up, driving conditions are about as good as they can be in the winter, and that's the way it is. So let me give you a little look-see at this, what it looks like at Costco here today. This is the fuel island I'm parked near. So Costco clears off the lot really nice. They got lots of money, so they can clear that off real nice. And I'll head in. So you have a really great day and a great weekend. Thanks for watching. Take care and have fun.